As a handyman extracted a dirty rag from a blocked chimney, he initially dismissed it as mere debris stuck inside. However, a closer look revealed something astonishing that left him shocked. Colin Davidson was someone who could be considered a handyman, a jack of all trades. He could turn his hands to most things and was proficient in pretty much anything DIY. He had initially trained as an electrician and worked for many years doing that, but he had picked up innumerable invaluable skills along the way. That's why when one customer asked him about an issue with her chimney, he was more than happy to take a look. Initially employed to sort out an electrical fault on the elderly woman's main fuse box, Colin had gotten talking to her as he worked. She had mentioned that her open-fire chimney had started to become blocked, and as a result, it would often fill her house with smoke whenever she lit the fire. Poking his head into the chimney, Colin could not see any daylight coming out of the top. It was clear the chimney had become completely blocked. Scratching his head, Colin grabbed a few tools from his van and made his way up onto the roof with his ladders. Using his longest pole, he started to poke it down the chimney, hoping to dislodge any blockage that was in there. Colin finally made contact with whatever it was that was causing the problem and pushed it free. He could hear it fall down the chimney stack and into the unlit fireplace. Pleased with the job, he headed back inside to take a look at what it was that was causing all of the fuss. What had landed in the unlit fireplace was a large, scrunched-up ball of blackened trash. It must have become lodged up there somehow, and while the smoke must have been able to get past it for a while, the soot had built up around it to a point where no more smoke could pass, causing the blockage. Colin tidied his things away, said goodbye to the grateful woman, and headed back to his van, carrying the trash with him. He never liked to leave a job in a messy condition. Colin drove all the way home and unpacked his gear. He took the old bit of trash that was inside the old lady's chimney and threw it in a garbage can in the corner of his garage before straightening up his things and making sure that everything was ready for work the next day. But just before he headed into his house, Colin suddenly had the urge to take a look at the trash he had dislodged from the woman's chimney. There was something about it that was drawing him to it. He plucked it out of the bin and shook off some excess soot before laying it down flat on a workbench in his garage. What he saw made his eyes go wide. Colin had found some kind of map. Now, this wasn't any ordinary kind of map, one that had been printed and distributed, making them common and not unusual at all. This one was hand-scribed, clearly made by someone long, long ago. This was a very strange discovery, but despite Colin's wide range of many things, he had little knowledge of maps and cartography. If he wanted to find out more about this map, he would need to contact someone who was far more knowledgeable in the subject. Luckily, he had an old friend who was a historian at a nearby museum. Colin had not seen Reggie in quite a few months, but if anyone would know what this map was, it was his historian friend. Heading over to the museum where Reggie worked, Colin excitedly handed it over. Reggie seemed as if he was busy and more than a little stressed, but he made some time for his friend. They sat and had a coffee, discussing all kinds of things and generally catching up before the topic of conversation veered onto Colin's strange discovery and what it meant. At that point, Reggie stood up and walked over to his workbench with the soot-covered map in his hand. Reggie unfolded the map and let out a little scream. He was clearly intrigued and started studying it. He had to brush away some of the black soot from the canvas, but the more he looked and the closer he studied, his eyes became wider and more shocked than ever. It was clear that this map was something special. Colin asked what he had seen, but Reggie remained quiet, deep in thought and concentration. More carefully now, he brushed away some more of the soot, studying each pin stroke and mark on the canvas. His mouth fell open, yet still, Reggie did not answer his friend's question. Eventually, Colin tapped Reggie on the shoulder and seemed to snap him out of his excited daze. Once again, he asked what he had seen on the map, and Reggie told his friend that he did not want to say just yet, not until he was 100% sure that he was right. Intrigued, if not a little impatient, Colin allowed his friend to keep the map for a few days in order to conduct some research on it. Heading home, Colin's stomach was filled with butterflies. While he had learned nothing yet from Reggie, it could not be denied that the historian was excited by the discovery, and Colin knew that Reggie rarely got excited over anything. So, to see him in such a state really gave him something to get thrilled about himself. It was certainly going to be a long few days waiting for some news. But even then, Colin could never in his wildest dreams have believed the truth about the map. But the truth would soon come out and change his life forever. In the meantime, Colin conducted some of his own research. He went on the internet and searched for maps before trawling through hundreds, maybe even thousands of images. There were modern maps, old maps, printed maps, handwritten maps, and even pirate maps, but none that looked quite like the one that he had found lodged in the chimney. This only deepened the mystery for Colin. It was lucky that he had several jobs booked to keep his mind occupied. Otherwise, the mystery of the map would have driven him mad. Several days later, the handyman got a phone call. It was Reggie, who still sounded fairly excited. He asked Colin to come down to the museum so he could tell him what he had discovered about the map. Hopping into his van, he headed out onto the road. All the way there, Colin's mind was going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Maybe it wasn't as exciting as he believed. Maybe it wasn't all that interesting after all, and Reggie was just joking with him. It wasn't until Colin walked into the building and saw the look of genuine shock and excitement on his friend's face that he knew it would be good and exciting news. The truth was that the map that Colin had dislodged from the chimney was, in fact, a valuable historical piece. The map dated back to the 17th century, and it was made by the famous Dutch engraver Gerard Volk. He had created it with his own hand, and as such, there were no other copies of the specific map anywhere. Colin asked Reggie if he was sure, and the historian nodded enthusiastically, pointing out several hallmarks that attributed this incredible map to Gerard Volk. What an amazing discovery! But there was still one twist left to this tale. How the map had found its way into the chimney was a mystery, and it would probably remain that way forever. But what wasn't a mystery was that the right buyer would pay a fortune for this one-of-a-kind map if it was in good condition. Reggie and his team restored the map bit by bit to its former glory. In fact, when they were done, it looked like new. They had done an incredible job. The map went on to be sold for several million at auction. Colin was amazed. He was now richer than he could have ever imagined. But every now and then, he would stop and smile to himself because if he hadn't been so curious, that map would have been thrown out in the trash and lost forever. What an incredible story. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave a comment below. See you in the next video.